Are we waiting for CPI on Wednesday? Are we waiting for the debate this evening? Just to get a sense of what the voting in swing states, is that what we're going to be looking for a bit of clarity on post-debate?
I think it's the debate we're definitely waiting for, but it's a good point that we won't necessarily know the impact immediately. We obviously, unless there's a complete, clear victory like there was in the Trump-Biden debate, but I think without some kind of surprise or some shocking disappointment from one of the candidates, it might take a little bit of time to process. But it is absolutely the debate that is the focus this week. And it's very interesting, given that most of the last few years, CPI has been such an important print. And it shows how we have fully made the transition to jobs again being the focus rather than inflation. That was the case for most of the last 20, 30 years until the last few years. And again, now we care about jobs over inflation, and particularly because we've got through the COVID period of where we're getting really volatile inflation prints. And therefore, we know there's going to be less of a surprise either way in inflation. If it beats it or misses, it'll be only by a minor amount more in the rounding.
How do I watch it? If I'm watching the debate, what is my indication? Is it Bitcoin? Is it futures, equity futures? Am I watching the 2-year? What am I watching, Mark?
So I used to say the betting markets were probably the best way to get the kind of the straightest interpolation. There's a lot more speculation now that betting markets are increasingly manipulated because people have realised that they're using the betting markets as a guide, and therefore you get momentum through the betting market. So I think they've been slightly undermined, whether validly or not. I think you've got to take a bit of the betting markets. I think you've got to take a bit of what's happening in crypto as a knee-jerk reaction as well. And then you've probably got to look at some of the basic asset markets. The problem there is there's a bit of a divide, and it goes with the political divide, on whether each candidate is good or bad for various asset classes out there. So I have to say that in the short term, until you get polls through, I do think, even though they're not perfect, it's betting markets and crypto that provide a better guide to the market's reaction.
Thinking of the macro stories of the moment, Mark, we're dealing with quite a bit of news flow out of China, whether that's on the inflation front a couple of days ago or the export data this morning, the trade data this morning. Chinese stocks have turned around from earlier losses, and actually commodity prices a little firmer this morning. But that's not been the story of the last days when it comes to commodities, or the last years when it comes to Chinese stocks.
Yeah, there's still a lot of pessimism there. It's really not changing that kind of China negativity. The price action is very marginally reassuring on a very short-term basis, but that is in the context of several years of not being very reassuring. Look, I am still very constructive on global stocks into year-end. I am just not seeing those growth concerns globally, but particularly in the US. Atlanta Now GDP Fed has jumped over the past week. We're seeing good growth in the US. We're seeing okay growth globally. And I think that stocks will continue to trade positively on that story of solid economic growth, even if it's not outstanding.